Hi, my name is Giancarlo Sopo. I voted twice for President Obama, worked to get him elected, and supported Hillary Clinton in 2016. The word socialism means something to me. Poverty, tragedy, and oppression. I know this from personal experience. I come from a working class family. My grandfather was arrested by Castro's socialist government for the crime of thinking differently. He then mysteriously died as a political prisoner. When my grandmother asked what happened to him, the socialist told them, well, he fell off the ledge. You might think that my family's story is tragic, and it is, but it's also not that unique. The community where I'm from, Miami, is home to thousands of Latinos whose lives were destroyed by this evil system. This includes LGBT people who were thrown in concentration camps by monsters like Che Guevara and other working and middle class families who had everything taken from them. And I'm urging my fellow Americans to reject this evil ideology. I am disappointed by the extremism on both sides, but I'm particularly appalled by how far left we are drifting and how some Americans are now embracing the same kind of socialist ideas that my family fled from in Cuba. The far left claims to care about Latinos, but there's a caveat. Only if you think like them. The truth is, they couldn't care less about the millions of Latinos suffering under socialism. Some will see this and say, well, don't we already have socialism in the form of social programs? Or they'll point to countries like
Denmark, Norway, Sweden
as examples of real socialism. But that's a lie. Charity is not socialism. And I agree with American liberals that there is a role for government to play in matters of social compassion. In fact, my mom was a social worker. The critics of free markets have a point though. Europe did try socialism for decades. But what they don't tell you is that it was a spectacular failure. Economies collapsed, poverty went up, and people's quality of life went down. The reason why Denmark and Sweden are prosperous today is precisely because they abandoned socialism and embraced capitalism. Meanwhile, places like Venezuela and Cuba, where my family is from, remain among the poorest countries in the world because they're socialist. Some may ask, but aren't those communist dictatorships and not really socialist governments? Well, yes and no. Cuba and Venezuela are indeed dictatorships, but they are also textbook examples of socialist economies. They are heavily regulated, it's hard to start small businesses, and their governments control major industries. A free economy is essential to securing personal freedom and political liberty, because if politicians can control the economy, they can control our lives. If you don't like the way things are going and want to vote them out, guess what? They can fire you from your job and keep you and your family from working. This system fuels corruption and misery. Now you might think Cuba and Venezuela are extreme examples, but even countries like Argentina and Brazil saw their economies collapse and corruption skyrocket under so-called democratic socialist governments. Meanwhile, here in the United States, we're being told that democratic socialists are the American cousins of Danish social democrats. But that's not true. European social democrats are capitalists who want more social programs for the poor, while the democratic socialists of America are openly calling for government takeovers of major businesses, forcing small business owners to give up control of their companies, and an end to capitalism. So let's be clear, that's not sort of like the economic system that my family and millions of other Latinos have fled. It's exactly like it. And it is nothing like what they have in Denmark and in the UK, which are free market economies. So I'm asking everyone, right, left, and center, to reject the policies of radical politicians like AOC and the Squad. If you allow socialism to take over this country, we're all doomed.